Hello. Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to our first podcast live, The Entrepreneur's Journey. I'm Natalie Fairchild, the founder of Pacific Perks Coffee, and I'm here with my friend, business coach, and co host, Martin Otez.
Good
Hey,
morning.
Martin, you
Hey,
ready? How about
I'm
that
definitely
music?
ready.
That music was great.
Pump you up.
I'm pumped. Let's go. So, why are we doing this? Martin, tell them why the heck did we decide to do this?
Yep. Well, so we're doing it because we've learned some things. We've learned some things from each other. It's not that we know anything better than anybody else, is that we feel like we need to share the experience that it is to learn these things as we go.
Absolutely.
And I feel like as a consultant, I keep learning from you and learning from all the other people that I work with, and hopefully they're learning something from me. And it's a true journey, right? Like you
Yeah.
always have to be going into the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and I feel like it's always a little guarded. People tend
Mhm,
to not share what it's like to be in
mhm,
the journey,
mhm.
and I think that that's what we're after here.
Yeah, yeah. And, I'm definitely the heart, and you are definitely the brain, so I feel like I lean more learn more from you, and one thing I did learn in just putting this podcast together, I can say I know how to spell entrepreneur.
And I'm learning how to pronounce it, so we're all good.
That was a hard one, but now I know. Don't ask me questions about, the years of different wars that happened in history, but now I know how to spell entrepreneur. So,
So why
yeah.
are we doing it live?
Yeah, because we love to, well, you and I both are just let's go and do it type of people. We don't love real scripted types of things. And I, for sure, am very, very real, raw. I tell it like it is, the good, the bad, the ugly. I celebrate when I need to celebrate, and I cry when I need to cry, and I ask you to pull me off the ledge when I need to be pulled off the ledge.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that that is part of the why do it live. Anytime that I had to get in front of a camera and I have to say something about business or what I've learned, I feel it's just not natural. Right? It just doesn't come off as you necessarily want it to, unless
Yeah,
I really psych myself up into not saying anything pre-written, right?
yeah,
And I can,
yeah,
but yeah, that's basically why we're going at it live.
yeah. We're definitely going to have some funny moments. There
Yeah,
may be
sure.
some cussing going on for sure in this box right here. I may be
Never in this one.
apologizing. Hey, I saw the blooper. We have bloopers, Martin, so that is against what you just said. And I will possibly be apologizing in 2 weeks for maybe what I said in this podcast. So, stay tuned. Maybe there'll be free pounds of coffee going out to people if they catch me saying something that I really shouldn't have. So, but that's me.
Yeah, and we have plenty of people joining.
Yes, Barb. Thank you for joining. Barb is an actual perkologist for Pacific Perks.
Sweet.
And then we have Candace Franklin, the author. Nice. Good morning, Candace.
Good morning,
So,
guys.
housekeeping. So, we talked about why we're live. Tell us, Martin, since you are the brain, where they can find us, how they can watch us, all that
Yeah,
good stuff.
yeah. Basically, if you're watching currently, you have the one platform that's working for you, but we're also on LinkedIn. Right now, LinkedIn is probably the one that's going to be changing. I'm broadcasting today on my profile, but going forward, we have a specific page for the entrepreneur's journey. And all you have to do is go to LinkedIn and like it,
Nice.
start following the page. After that, we'll be able to broadcast directly to it. We're on YouTube, obviously, and we're also in a Facebook page that is specific for this broadcast. So if you're catching it in one of those, uh, each one of them will record, and you'll be able to watch later as well. If you're not catching us live, hi.
Perfect. And we have 58 followers on the Entrepreneur's Journey Live
Hey,
LinkedIn page. 58. 58. So we would love to get that up. So go like us. Um, and if you really like us, comment. And if you don't comment. Don't worry about that. Um, okay. So let's do some intros. So Martin, why don't you go ahead first?
yeah. Well, so Natalie, as I said, we've known each other for a long, long, long time, and we've been working together for just almost as long. And you obviously get to like learn the person, learn their humanity as well. Natalie is the mom to two great young women, right?
Yes.
Smart, entrepreneurial kind of young women. And Natalie is the founder of Pacific Perks Coffee. And very recently, Pacific Perks Coffee was elevated from a local business to a national franchise, which is quite an achievement. If you don't know anything about franchising, that's a journey on itself.
Yes, it
And
is.
Natalie just completed that journey and now began the journey of being a franchise. And Natalie, as she said, she's the heart of this operation. I think that there's no place that Natalie doesn't bring inspiration to.
Hmm.
Whether she's volunteering or running her own business, people are engaged, and that's why she's that half of this equation.
Thank you. That is so sweet. Oh.
Ah, sweet, that's me.
And then there's Martin, the absolute brain. So he gave me a couple little tidbits on him, and I was like, oh my goodness. Um, Martin's got quite the history. It could be a podcast all in itself. Background in medicine and mental health, which, side note, if you have that in a business coach, that is quite the perk. 21 years as an operation and management consultant. He's worked in 8 countries, several Fortune 1000 companies, and consulted over 600 businesses. Holy cow. Co founded and exited one boutique consulting firm and a forensic psychology group. Ooh, that again, another podcast. But Martin, to me, he is a husband, wonderful husband. He has 3 kiddos, and has he's an amazing business coach that has been with me for over 10 years. And like I said, inspired me when I didn't think I believed in it, and also pulled me off the ledge when I needed that. So that's who Martin is. And we love to just talk about business. And so we're excited to kick off this podcast. All
For
right.
sure.
All right. So what are we
Hi,
talking about
Norma. How are
today?
you?
Yeah. Awesome.
Gary,
My dad.
William, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
So, another piece of housekeeping, since we're on that, um, we're intending to do the show every first and third Friday,
Yes.
same time, 9 a.m. And we really want it to be dynamic. We mean it when we say it's not scripted. We mean it when we say it's going to be a conversation. Natalie and I are going to share a little bit of what our experience is. We're going to probably choose a topic for each one. We're going to have some great guests, and we also would like to hear from you. We'd like to get some questions as we go. Again, it's not like we have the answers. Like the questions are going to be answered from the place of what's my experience around that particular thing. And sometimes the answer will be like, wow, I have no experience around that particular thing. And that's going to be a great opportunity to either
Yeah.
engage with somebody else, bring in on a guest that may be an expert in that field. And we're just going to try to provide that value going forward.
Which is a great point, because one of my big things in business is that it's very important to leave your ego aside and remember that you don't have to know everything, and you won't know everything, and you'll constantly
Really got
be
to
learning.
remember that one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You really have to, because then if you don't do that, then you're not pulling people in that are the experts that can help you along that journey. So know what you're good at, and stick in that lane and bring the people along that can help you with the other stuff.
Yeah, it's a little
So,
cliche, right? But you want to hang around people that are smarter than you. You
absolutely.
want them to challenge your ideas, and you want them to ask you, well, how did you come up with that? Or
Mhm.
I call it hole shooters. Like they need to be people who are respectfully going to shoot holes at your ideas. They're going to start talking to you about the angles you haven't thought about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, in that sense, we feel like we have some really great people lined up
Yep.
here to talk to, and we're
Yeah.
going to be asking them the tough questions. We'll take the easy
Absolutely.
ones.
Absolutely, for sure, for sure. So we do have one question from someone that is not able to join us this morning, but she has a question. So if we want to go ahead and do that, Lori Williams with Unitas Credit Union, she does financial educational workshops for high school, college people, which I think is amazing because you don't learn that in high school and it's so beneficial. But she focuses on entrepreneurship, which is very cool. And she's asking, as an entrepreneur, what do you do for your retirement account? This is a great question and something that needs to be brought up a lot because in my situation, we put everything back into the business. We tried to only take draws on the minimum that we needed in the very beginning. Not that this was the right way, but we should have also been paying ourselves first by reaching out to a financial advisor, getting some money in Roth IRA or whatever, and just even if it's a small amount, just keep doing it consistently. Make it automatic. Don't make it something where you have to transfer it every month because it will magically not be there to transfer. But if you have
Not
it
to
set up
mention
on
it be magically painful every.
exactly, exactly, it won't happen. It won't happen. So just have it automatic and start doing that. Um, at Pacific Perks, we did instill in the last, oh, it was right before COVID, a simple IRA program, and so we do a 3% matching for employees that want to put money into that. So we do have a program now, which also helps my employees, but also me as well. However, start young, start consistently. I set my girls up in high school with putting $25 a month automatically into an account. And I think if you do that early, it's going to really help out because I'm 51 and I'm trying to like go like gangbusters now. So even if it's the smallest amount, I would say start something for sure. What would you say, Martin?
Yeah, right. So, this is one of the questions that brings up a theme that you'll definitely catch from me if you hear me enough, which is they educate the entrepreneur out of you, right? Like
Mhm.
there's a certain
Mhm.
type of relationship you have with business and with what you want to do with your life, that if you just take the information from, like, say, regular schooling, public schooling, and just go with that,
Mhm.
that's not where you're
Mhm.
going to end up. You're not going to end
Mhm.
up in an entrepreneurial life, right? You really got to, like, step a little bit outside that boundary in order to do that. And that is part of the game, right? Part of the game is
Mhm.
to make it sound super risky to be an
Mhm.
entrepreneur, but to make it sound like only a 0.5% of people make it. And the thing is, yeah, sure, it's risky, but so is everything else. And
Mhm.
the retirement piece is one of those pieces that it tends to be held over you as, okay, well, if you become an entrepreneur, you do business on your own, you're not going to be able to retire. You're not going to have a retirement. The thing is,
Mhm.
the tools that are available for employees are the
Mhm.
same tools that are available for entrepreneurs, right? You can have solo 401ks, you can
Mhm.
have IRAs, like Natalie said, and also the same level of professionals that are available for other people are available to you. You can
Yeah.
create a relationship with a CFP, and from the
Mhm.
beginning, right? Most of these guys are really used to walking you through the steps, right? And
Mhm.
telling you, look, you have nothing right now. This is what you got to do. And the other
Yeah.
thing that entrepreneurs can do is plan out around their own life, right? So, for instance, You want to start with, okay, I'm building a business, I'm beginning to get a little profit. When this is happening, pay yourself and start thinking about
Mhm.
where you're going to be building equity, right? Where are the
Mhm.
places
Yeah.
where you're going to start building value outside yourself, right? If Because otherwise you have a little bit of a self-employment situation going.
So when you're building equity outside yourself, Martin, tell me more what you mean by
Yeah,
that.
there's a couple of ways you can build equity outside yourself, right? The first one is you want to build it within your business, right? So if your
Right.
business is operating at the same level that it was when you were running everything, but you have people and you're not required, you've already built some equity, right? That can be sold, that
Yeah.
can be
Yeah.
leveraged, that can be uh,
Yeah.
borrowed against, just because it exists outside yourself, right? And if
And
you go
that's
away, it continues,
yeah, and that's so important because I also all along through the years I've been like, well, my retirement is my business. And so I need to, we're just this is what we're doing. We're building the business, we're building the business. But that is a little risky in itself and not putting all your eggs in one basket. So, having some IRA, things like that, and building the equity in your business is a great thing.
right? And
Um,
then you can also step outside your business and start building
mhm,
into other things, right? Real
mhm.
estate, start gaining assets that are outside and that can just work for you. But it's the same logic, right?
Yeah.
At some point you're going to have a conversation with someone that says, look, in this country, this
Mhm,
is what it costs for you to live without working,
mhm,
and that's your
mhm,
target number, right? And
mhm.
that's what you got to start thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, when you do start making a little bit more money, I did give myself a raise the last few years. And before I got that first raise paycheck, I just took a big old chunk and sent it right into the simple IRA program. So I didn't have to feel the pain and I could check the box and okay, I'm doing what I need to do for
Right,
retirement. So that's a good little mental trick.
for sure. Hi,
So
Jen and Delina, how are you?
so good to see you guys. This is
Great people.
awesome. Yeah, very good people that we've connected each other with these people.
That's right.
So, yeah, wonderful people in this community for sure.
So, Natalie, I
Yeah.
wanted to like start with the basics, right?
Yeah.
So, for you, what's an
Mhm.
entrepreneur?
An entrepreneur is when I kind of discovered that I was an entrepreneur, I would say the characteristics were that I was always curious about things. I have a very curious mind. And some of our best attributes can also drive people crazy. So, note there. But I ask a lot of questions. I want to know how things work. And that is a sign of an entrepreneur for sure. Also, if I would go into businesses and I would seek out things that were going really well there, or gosh, if they just changed this, and I almost made it my duty. Like, should I tell the owner that in this yoga studio he's got buzzing light, fluorescent lights? And it's like, Natalie, no, you're not in charge of everyone. You're not the savior for everyone. Um,
I can just leave it
so
in a note.
it's a sickness almost. Or if you can be like, hey, I think that business is going to make it, or you're like, there's no way that business is going to make it, and you have that intuition of what works and what doesn't. If you are a risk taker, if you are one of those people that is given an opportunity and you're really excited about the opportunity but you're scared shitless about it, there's my first cussing a moment. Then you're probably an entrepreneur. And because you know that there is reward in that risk and putting yourself out there. Um, and this is a journey and a super fun journey for so many people, but it is a different type of person. So yeah, being an entrepreneur is I couldn't ever go back. If you put me in a cubicle 8 to 5, I would literally crumble and die. Um, it is right now to me, an entrepreneur is making things happen on my own timeline, getting the ability to bring people on my team and mentor them and learn from them, to, you know, attack dreams that I've had. Like, become a franchise, even though I'm scared to death. It's the flexibility. It's being able to come into a life of balance. And that's a different thing. And that's something that we may talk about in a podcast all to itself. Because if you know me, you know my passion is balance of life. And that's why I love being in business for myself. Now, for some people, they would say that's the exact opposite, but it's how I've curated it because that's what our family needed. So,
Yeah, for sure.
so how about you?
Well, yeah. So it's interesting, right? As a English as a second language speaker, I'm
Hmm.
obsessed with words and the origin. So I went back and looked.
The
Um,
brain,
yeah, there it is.
you.
And so here's what's interesting. Right? If you look at the original definitions, they're very simple. It's like people engaged in a project, and
Mm,
that's it. That's an entrepreneur, right? Somebody who's
mm,
engaged in something.
mhm,
But if you read at the more modern definitions of it, they all have to do with business and risk. They always have this attachment of business and risk. And
mhm.
I really think that most people are entrepreneurs. Most of
Mm,
us are walking around with that kind of curiosity. Most of us are walking around thinking, well, what if I did this by myself? Can I? Can I do this better? And what happens is that jump tends to be hard, right? It's been made
yeah,
hard by what we've
yeah.
been told, and it's also
Mhm,
been made hard by our own
mhm.
ideas about how hard it potentially is.
Yes,
But essentially, is anybody who's involved in an enterprise, right? An enterprise is nothing more than a project that has a very distinct beginning, middle, and end.
mhm.
So you can be an entrepreneur within your own house, within your
Good
own.
point.
Yeah, because you are in the middle of a project, right? You're figuring out a budget, you're figuring out how to make sure that you're spending less than you're bringing in.
Good point. Good
And
point.
yeah,
See, I just learned something. I
so
just said that entrepreneurs are this very little niche market, but and then here's Martin,
yeah,
blowing
no,
up the idea that it could be anyone,
I
which is
really think
true.
everybody has it in them, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's a matter of, are you going to cultivate it and go
Mhm.
for whatever it is that pops up as an opportunity or not?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's where it gets a little
So
interesting.
so that's the step. That's the scary step. And so we've talked a little bit about this before that people become entrepreneurs for different reasons. And
Yeah,
so for me, it was basically a crisis in our family. And we needed to get my husband, Jim, out of the corporate world. And I was out of the corporate world at that time. And we needed to balance each other out based on a disability. And so people say, "Oh man, you're so courageous. You just, made this decision and went for it." And it's kind of like, "Well, thank you, but we had to do something. We were in crisis mode." And so sometimes, and you can talk about the mental aspect of this, I'm sure a lot, Martin, but when things become very painful, sometimes we don't change until things become so painful. The only option is to make a change in life. Yeah.
yeah, I agree, and I think that there's something else to be said, right? What you did is you took a very small, almost design of a business and
Right.
turned it into a
Right.
business inside of a crisis, right? And
Right.
that's how a lot of people do it.
Mhm.
That's how a lot
Mhm.
of people do it, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes you get to a place where you have to.
Mhm.
I think that my first year in country would probably be very similar,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
I did a lot of like, look,
Mhm.
man, I'll work for you for free, and if I produce the results I'm saying I'll produce, then you pay me back, right? And
Mhm.
that's what it takes sometimes. Now,
Mhm.
can it be done without a crisis? Sure, it can be done without a crisis. You have to be a little cerebral about it, but for most people, it requires a circumstance that you either created for yourself or that you are going to uh, tackle because it's important to you.
Right. Right. Tristan says crisis is a great motivator. It absolutely is. Absolutely. Best motivator ever. Oh, yeah, what people call courageous, we experience it as crisis that demands change. It is totally weird. It is, for sure.
Yep.
For sure. So the most courageous people to me are the ones that are in a corporate job making great money. They have a great benefit package. They've got golden handcuffs per se. And but
I've had a
they
couple of those.
well, maybe you can give us their experience. I'm
Nope.
talking to some people that are similar that are interested in buying our franchise.
Hmm.
And most of them are business owners that want to get out of the corporate world, or not business owners. They want to get out of the corporate
Yeah.
world. They want to have their own thing. They want to own their life, their own flexibility, all of that. And so it's making that jump to the uncomfortableness of the unknown and letting go what you have, which is pretty darn good in some ways, except you don't have the ownership and flexibility of your life, which a lot of people are going after. But I think those are the most courageous people.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that franchise is something I really like because it gives people sort of an in between.
Yeah.
You're jumping, sure, you're jumping, but you're jumping into a very organized process, right? It's a
Mhm.
business system. Somebody took the time to say, okay, well, when you do this particular business, you're going to do it in this steps.
Mhm.
And that's
Mhm.
sort of the beauty of franchise. Now, if
Right.
somebody's interested in a franchise, they need to learn quite a bit about that so that they know
Mhm.
whether they're looking at a good business system or not. But that's a whole other show too.
Yeah, totally. Whole other show. Yeah, for sure. For sure. So, yeah, so you have often said to me, Martin, you're really good in crisis. And I I don't want to have crises to be good. But I think you say that, and you can be open and honest about this. I think you say that because you say I need something to be working on. And if I'm in status quo, I can kind of maybe get myself in trouble. So
Right.
what tell
Yeah.
me more about that.
Well, it's not unique to you. We all like comfort.
Mhm.
We're hardwired, right? Our brains are hardwired to not seek risk.
Mhm. Right.
Risk is the
Right.
last thing you
Absolutely.
want,
Absolutely.
right? And again, I think that that commingles a lot of things. It commingles the
Mhm.
conversation about being in business.
Mhm.
Again, the more people talk about it, it's super risky, it's super this, it's super that. I mean, if you've been laid off or fired in the last 2 years, that was just as risky, right? Like
Good point.
you had a whole uh, group of things that were lined up for you, right? You had a 401k, and then it's gone,
Good point.
right? You had health insurance, and then it's gone, and that's the trade-off, right? There's a
Mhm. Mhm.
predictability to it. Sure, somebody else
Mhm.
is footing the bill, kinda, um,
Mhm.
but educationally, we're not really looking at like being in business as a viable alternative. It always
Mhm.
looks like this maverick thing to do, and I don't
Mhm.
think it is. I
Mhm.
think that it's just a completely valid way of existing, and
Yeah.
it's a completely valid way of making a living. In
Mhm.
fact, that's how I think people are truly happy if
Mhm.
they're actually doing what they want to contribute to the world and they get paid for it enough to live.
Right.
I
Right.
am not one of those "I'll make you a millionaire" coaches because that's not what
Mhm.
I think makes people happy.
It isn't. And that is not my philosophy either. So if someone's looking to buy our franchise system, um I'm not looking for someone who is like, I want to be up to this point. I'm not the franchisor who's like, I want 50 locations in 2 years and I want them all over and blah blah blah. I don't want 50 nightmares. I want to do this right. I want the right people in there. I want to help them thrive and survive and grow like they should grow. And one thing you just said that made me kind of think about this is when were starting out in the business, we read E-Myth Revisited,
Mhm.
which is a great book. And basically the philosophy is that you got into business because you like making pies. Um, and you want to keep doing the thing that you like, and the reason why you got into that business. And there's so many different hats you have to wear as an entrepreneur. And people get really discouraged because they're like, I don't want to do bookkeeping. And then I'm getting behind in my bookkeeping. And that's not why I got into this, and that kind of thing. So it's yeah, so that just that a little take on that about getting into something and that you really enjoy, that made me think about how entrepreneurs can kind of get into a rut as well. And we might be going down another rabbit hole, but hey,
No, it's
this is
great though.
live, and that's the thought that came in my brain.
No, it's great though, because it's the perfect solution for that whole crisis thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like a lot
Yeah.
of us need a crisis, right?
Mhm.
Need some sort of incentive
Mhm.
to engage.
Mhm.
And why don't you make the things about your business that you don't like your incentive to engage? Which
Mhm.
is, it's a crisis that you have to spend your Friday nights doing bookkeeping when you hate it.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
basically figured out
Mhm.
how much it would take for you to be able to pay somebody to do that,
Right.
know
Right.
enough about it to be able to supervise that. But other
Right.
than that, that's your new goal, right? That is the crisis to avert.
Yeah, absolutely. And Candace says for her, it's sales. She goes, she wants people to magically just come buy my pies. We would be great partners, Candace, because I love sales and I am a horrible cook. So
You make the pies, I
you
sell
make
them.
pies, I'll sell them. And my dad is on, and he said fear was a good motivator for him. And yes, Benjamin, good
Benjamin.
to see you. Outsource it. Absolutely. Um, but he was in a position where he was working for an electrical contractor, and things changed for him there. And he was like, okay, I've got three small children. I need to make X amount of dollars to cover the expenses. And that was the fear and the motivator. Like it was a must, and let's knock on some doors and make some calls, and he made it month to month. And then my mom managed the money for us, for the family, and did a great job. So yeah. So another example. So if anyone listening has examples of that, feel free to put them in the chat, because it's always interesting to hear people's stories and where they got to where they were going. I was speaking to WSUV, an HR club, and they were juniors and seniors getting ready to graduate. And my best advice for them is, you're not necessarily going to know what you want to do at 18, 19, 20. Just stay curious and open to different opportunities. And if you ask somebody Martin and I's age, like, how did you get here? Well, it's an interesting story, and it weaves and it bends and it crosses
Oh,
state
it was a
lines and
long road,
country
Sunny. Yeah.
lines.
They
Yeah,
think of us as ancient. Um,
we are
yeah,
young.
I think you're right. And that's the other thing that is changing. I feel like we're going to do a whole show later on about
Yeah.
how everything is changed in the
Hmm.
business world. But
Hmm.
that's another one of those things. I feel like with more younger millennial parents, and for they're beginning to look at, again, life and existing in a different way.
Hmm.
Our parents were like, you're going to college and you need to get a job like right away, because otherwise you have no security. And I feel like that's not necessarily the way we're looking at it for our kids. I feel
No.
like they need to explore some things. 18, 19 is super young for me to
Mhm,
like demand that they know what the hell they're
mhm,
going to do with their lives.
mhm,
I
mhm.
certainly didn't.
I
Um,
didn't. No.
and and that's kind of the way it's moving, right? It's moving
Mhm,
towards a more of an exploratory, more entrepreneurial,
mhm,
one could
mhm,
hope, and
mhm,
a little less rigid, right? It's a
mhm,
little less um, forcing people to have this path, right? Where
mhm.
like you always have to go to college. I actually don't think everybody has to go to college.
No, and great example living this right now. So I've got Maddie, who is graduating from college in 2 weeks, loved college, took every ounce of college fun and experiential, everything. She took it all in. And she was the kind of great college experience. And then London was a junior this year, and after winter term with some different things going on, was like, it's just not my thing.
Yeah.
And it was really important that her dad and I let her know that, there are a zillion ways to live life and be successful in life, which let's define success in a minute. But and college is just one path, just
Mhm.
one of many. And the funny thing is, it turns out she's my entrepreneur. She sells vintage clothing. She has a booth, signed a contract herself, bought all the racks, painted them, designed, the signage, business cards, and she killed it her first month. I mean, and she's my entrepreneur. It's
It,
crazy.
yeah, and it doesn't take much, right? Like
Yeah.
what they have nowadays more than anything is options.
Yeah. Lots of
And
options.
one of the things that I find myself talking with clients that run older companies, right? And they're like sort of in that place of getting a little stuck, thinking
Mhm.
that young people don't want to work or something like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
It's like, no, man. What happens is they have options. They have a
You're
lot
right.
more options than just whatever paycheck you're dangling in front of them.
You're
and,
right.
and that's why, and again, we can get into all of that later
Yeah, I'm writing
times,
down topics as we're
but but that's why companies need to start providing something outside a paycheck.
Mhm. And when you say that, Martin, I know you have an idea what that is.
I have an
So,
idea.
okay, so give me a little, give it,
Yeah.
don't leave us hanging.
So look, in a straight exchange, right? If what I give you is X number of dollars in exchange for an hour of your time,
Mhm.
right? And that's all we get.
Mhm.
If you're 17, 18, that may be enough.
Mhm.
But if you're, 23, 24, you're beginning to be like, that flat exchange is not going to match up
Mhm.
with the flat exchange that you could get somewhere else. Like if you're doing your own thing, right? You're in the
Mhm.
process, you're learning a bunch, you're learning how to run a business, you're learning about economics, you're learning about consumer products, and you're doing your own thing and you're getting paid at the same rate. I'm like, I'm gonna take that one every day.
Absolutely.
So organizations need to start figuring out how to give a little more, right? You got to give them benefits that they would not get elsewhere.
Mhm.
You got to
Mhm.
give them education they would not get
Mhm.
anywhere. I feel like
Mhm.
companies are super, super
Yeah.
stingy with education.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't
Yeah.
want to train people if they're going to leave. Why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Train
No.
them, train them,
Exactly.
have them produce for you for however long, and then let them fly away.
And that's the ego getting in the way, for sure.
Oh,
And looking
absolutely.
at a world of not having abundance and enough for everyone.
Yeah.
Um, so
London's
yes.
getting some kudos.
Yay, London. I know, I'm so proud of her. Um, and Tristan says, 100% agree about college. And Tristan's got, a great story too. Was in college trying to get into a specific program. They only let like 6 people in. He had great grades, doing what he needed to do. And it just didn't work out. And he started helping us out. And now he's part business owner of
Here we
Pacific
are.
Perks. And he's in it to win it. And yeah, it's, yeah. And so success. So I do want to talk about that. If but I don't want to change
No,
the
go for it.
subject. Okay.
Of course not.
So I want to know your answer to this as well. But what is your definition of success? And this is a great one if people want to add in the chat, like, what is success to them? And so, aw, T, thanks. Maybe some of my crazy moods sometimes. Maybe you'd change that. No, we have fun. We laugh at each
Hey,
other. We have a
Amanda.
great time. um, so success is different things to different people. For me, when we started this business almost 16 years ago, we had to have the balance of life, as I've said. So for me, it is having flexibility, having being out of the day to day, which is pretty new in the last couple years for me, which is just there's so much space. And
Mhm.
I mean, I wake up in the morning and the level of stress is just different. And I'm working on the big projects, which is so me, and the dreaming, and the next big thing and that kind of thing. And so having that is amazing, and not being in the day to day means that, and I have done this before. And Tristan has been so supportive along with my other team members, but I have said, guys, I have an opportunity to go see my parents in Mexico next week, and I booked a trip. And even when I was in the day to day, they were like, go, go, do it, do it. And so just being able to have that flexibility and just not be tied down is just so amazing. I think there was a stat that if you make 70,000, like your happiness goes up to like 70K. It's probably been adjusted for inflation, but
Down.
then after, oh, is it?
It's probably being adjusted down.
Yeah, probably. But then after that, your happiness doesn't really go up much more regarding how much money you make. And I want to make enough to pay the bills and not have that stress. Know that I'm putting money in retirement, um, being able to travel and do fun things in life and have flexibility in time and self care. And that is success to me.
Yeah. So here's the thing for me. I think that you're right about that 70,000 marker. And the thing is, that number changes depending on what country you're in.
Okay, so give us an example.
Yeah. So you see, 70,000 probably is the like threshold of happiness here because
Hmm.
everything costs so damn much.
Right, right. Of course.
It, but I've met some incredibly happy people that live on $2 a day in El Salvador. And I met
Exactly.
some incredibly happy
Yeah,
people who make 57,000 here in the US, right? So it's more
yeah.
about, can you cover your needs, right? Like, so
Hmm.
there's no conversation about happiness if your needs are compromised.
Hmm. Hmm.
But once they're no longer compromised, everything else is sort of like open. So for
Hmm.
me, the definition of success is having choice.
Mm.
If you can choose what to do with your day, what you do with your month, what you do
Mhm,
with
mhm,
your vacation, right? What you
mhm.
do with your money,
The
like,
autonomy, just a
then you will have success.
mhm,
And
mhm,
it has
and
nothing
happiness.
to do with the amount, right?
Mhm,
In fact, most of
mhm,
the rich people I know are pretty miserable.
mhm. Right, and they do say that.
They're
Um,
famously miserable.
yeah, right. Um, so you were just talking, I just lost my train of thought, and this is why we are going live. Okay, just said repeat what you said if you can remember, because I know we're
Probably
about the
not.
same age.
Probably not. It's like, where are my glasses again? Um,
Oh God.
no, basically that, like, if you have choice, you are successful,
Oh,
right?
yes, thank
If
you.
you can choose.
Yes. But I do wanna make a, like, public statement announcement that, we all have choice. So when we don't think we have choice, this is just another soapbox, but if you feel stuck, know that you do have a choice in life, in whatever that is, personally, business-wise, whatever it is. We always have a choice as humans. Now, Martin, $2 a day, happy in El Salvador. Are they getting their needs met for
You're
$2 a
like,
day?
how does that even happen?
But
Yeah,
aren't there people who aren't like, when you go to different countries, aren't there people who aren't getting their needs met, but they have these huge smiles on their faces?
yeah, and that's part of it, right? It's also cultural because you go to some places where, the kids crumple up some papers and play as a ball, and they're like happy as clams.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's not necessarily happiness, right? That's not success.
I know. Yeah. Those
It's
are two
it's a
different things. Yeah.
success and happiness.
Yeah.
So they're happy because they are at peace with where they were, what they are.
Mhm.
They're
Mhm.
happy because they think that that's enough, right? They think that maybe that's an improvement to where they were a couple of years prior, and
Mhm.
that is
Mhm.
occurring for them as something to be happy about.
Mhm.
And the thing is, like, I wouldn't dare to try to define happiness as easily as I try to define success.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know what that really
Mhm.
what the
Mhm.
definition really is.
Yeah, I mean, you said the word peace, and I think when I have peace, I'm happy. I think we're all striving for that. I think, life can be challenging. And I've learned as I've grown older that when you have a day when things are just clicking and you're seeing the sun out there, oh geez, Martin, thank you, Dad. um, that it's just you just have to stop and relish it
Hmm.
because this too shall pass. One of my favorite quotes, both ways.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
when you're in the muck of life, which happens, you have to remember that life to or that that quote.
Yeah, and the thing is, again, right? Culturally, we're told some things that personally I found not to be true.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right? Like
Oh, yeah.
the way some of these things are defined by the masses, or the way that things are defined, I'm
Mhm.
like, that's not it.
Mhm.
Right? Like, that's not. They throw
Mhm.
numbers at that, like that at you. Like,
Mhm.
you once you make this much, you're gonna be, and it's
Mhm.
not.
Mm-mm.
I've made a lot of cash at some point,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I wasn't happy while doing it. And
Mhm.
then sometimes I've been pretty strapped, and it's been kind of great.
Mhm.
So it's
Mhm.
it,
Yeah.
and vice versa too, right? Like, there's
Mhm.
no real relationship, at least for me,
Mhm.
with money
Mhm.
and happiness
Yeah.
and or success.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something I get to warn people about when they work with me. Said,
Mhm.
okay, if what you're after here is to be a millionaire, or even worse, now they throw it around, they go, oh, I want to be a billionaire. Then I'm not your guy.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna
Yeah.
help you do
Yeah.
that. I'm gonna
No.
help you figure out what is it that you do want to do, and
Mhm.
dive into that and make a nice living off of it.
Martin, we might have a great following with the people that are in line with this, and then there's gonna be a group of people that are listening that
Haters,
are like, "Oh my god, it's horrible.
yeah,
What are
just
they talking about?"
it's no prosperity gospel, guys.
Yeah.
That's not gonna be it.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
this is good.
that's right,
Happiness is
Alina.
often more about contentment and peace, not necessarily ease or luxury. Ah,
And yeah, and that's the thing, the
contentment.
luxury piece, right? Like,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
get given certain standards, and if those
Mhm.
standards are not met, all of a sudden you're like,
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah. For
And
sure.
I really think that that's not what it's about. Delina, participating in there made me think of something I haven't covered. Is, if at some point you guys want to throw a question in here, for sure, throw it in the
Mhm.
chat. But
Mhm.
if you want to come in into the live and say it, be on camera,
Mm.
I can make that happen. So if somebody wants to come in
Absolutely.
here and has their
Absolutely.
hair and makeup done, we can put them in here.
And then, yeah, and what your definition of success is for sure.
Yeah,
So,
so
yeah,
throw that in there.
yeah,
How do you define success for yourself?
yeah, exactly. And yeah, capitalism keeps telling us we need more to be happy, and Amazon makes that way too easy. But I've made different levels of money, and I still get just a thrill out of a good deal. Like I think I'll always get a
Mhm.
thrill out of a good deal.
Yeah, that's pretty
Um,
human.
yeah, yeah, but not always. It's like how much can we spend? Like if I'm not going to spend less than 1,000 on a watch, says someone, or it's just not meaningful enough.
Yeah, but and that's the thing, if they put that same watch on sale for 50% off,
I'm there.
did
No.
you save?
Yeah.
or you just spend $500,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the things you buy. It's like,
Mhm.
do you have a use for that? Is that
Mhm.
something that is furthering whatever objectives you have? And Jen has a great question here.
Yeah.
It's a follow up to something I said about business equity. So business equity is nothing more than the value of the business independent of the players, right? So if
So
everybody
layman
can,
terms is
if what you can sell it for, right? Like, so if I have a lemonade stand and every Saturday I have to get up and like do the lemonade and sit out there in the sun and sell it, right? If I want to try to sell that, probably what somebody's going to buy it for is the cost of the lemons and the table, and that's just about it. Because when I'm gone, they're going to have to step in and do all the work, right? But instead, if I have a
Mm.
series of lemonade stands where I've trained several individuals to be the lemonade stand maker and seller, and they're just sort of like out there making money, and eventually I can spend $10 in supplies and rack in $100 for each one of them, then the value of that business is 10, 100 minus 10 minus the cost of the employees times the number of stands, right? And that is something I can
Mm.
sell. So you
Mhm.
built an equity on a concept, on a set of
Mhm.
processes, on a set of uh, procedures that somebody can follow.
Now
And
that kinda sounds like Pacific Perks.
well, it is sort of the beginnings of the franchise concept, right?
Okay.
Where like
Right.
you really
Right. Right.
package all of that
Okay.
up, and then you can say to someone, "Look, we have this particular success here, and you can duplicate that without me losing control of the original asset, and you can just go duplicate it under my license, if you will."
So is so more speaking to once you build a business and franchise it is the equity
Well,
or
or you don't even have to franchise it, right? Like you could just build the scale of the business and
Mhm.
then sell that. Or
Mhm.
in a lot of cases, right, a lot of owners will build something that is deep or complicated enough that they'll sell it and they'll
Mhm.
still be asked to stay.
Mhm.
So that's double equity, right? You
Yeah.
basically get paid for the consulting that follows, and you
Yeah.
get paid for the value of the business.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. Love that. Maybe someday. Perfect.
Yeah, and Candace has added, like, or you build something that has a brand that has a value on itself, right? And because of that, people want it.
Yeah. Perfect. Perfect. Steve has a question.
Let's see.
What is the most important to or not in your life that will be your life, personal and professional North Star? Martin.
Yeah, it's kind of the question that I wanted to ask you. It's like, sort of, what's your personal philosophy?
Mhm.
What's your uh, what's your way about you in business? Um,
Mhm.
so for me, it's all about. I hate saying balance. I'm trying to find a better word for it, but
I know you're
it's
using my word.
it's about basically getting enough clarity around the what I enjoy doing,
Mhm.
such that I can concentrate on doing a lot more of that and not nothing else,
Mhm.
and whether that engagement is sufficient for me to just cover my needs and grow.
Mhm. Mhm.
And and that's basically the thing that is most important for me,
Mhm.
having that connection between what I
Mhm.
enjoy doing and whether that is sufficient to cover me
Mhm.
and the ones that I love, right? Obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Delina says she has a question, can pop in.
Oh, let's do
Let's
it.
try this out.
Let's try this out.
You're our first. So hopefully the brain can figure it out because I'm
I
not gonna.
I can figure it out. So, Delina, I'm emailing you a link, and all you have to do is join.
And Steve, thank you for your question. For sure.
I'm hoping I answered it, Steve. So if I didn't,
Yeah.
feel free to say it. You didn't.
Yeah. Definitely. I feel like I've talked a lot about that for me. What is most important. Another thing is mentoring people. I got a degree in human development and family studies, and which kind of makes me laugh. But I do say I develop humans. I love to see the best happen for every person. And so I get a chance to do that and try to be part of that. And that is really fulfilling for me, and just bringing an incredible group of people together. We had a team meeting this last Monday, and there was like 28 of us there. And um, Hannah, who does some social media for us, she was also there. And she just texted me later, like, it was such a lovely meeting and just incredible group of people. And I'm like, I know these people are the best. And when you can bring some just incredible, there's so many good people in the world, and there's so many good things happening, but there's a lot of buzz about a lot of ugh that's happening. And but to remember and to bring that group of people together, it's just so invigorating and energizing, and good to remember. Are we ready to bring Delina in?
She's been invited. So
Okay.
one thing I'll say about your team is that it's obvious to me every time I interact with them
Mhm.
that they're engaged because you let them have choice.
Mm.
There's places they can go, right? Like I
Mhm.
can get involved in this or I can get involved in that, and
Mhm.
they learn. And
Mhm.
that's the best thing you can do for a team. That's how
Mhm.
you create some of the buzzwords that you hear a lot from corporations, right? You hear
Mhm.
loyalty and things like that. It's like, well,
Mhm.
what are you building how are you even
Mhm.
building loyalty if people hear, you know, you give them a tiny little box like this and you can't move from this,
Mhm.
right? This is what
Yeah.
we expect you to do. Sometimes the
Yeah.
box is bigger than what a single person can do. I mean,
Right.
it's just
Right.
none
Yeah.
of that is going to build loyalty. Loyalty
Yeah.
is built by really providing value.
Mhm. And, working for a small business versus a big corporation, there's some pros and cons for sure. But I feel like the one thing that my team has is they have flexibility. They know they're going to be supported. They do have choice. They're not micromanaged. They're stretched to, to for growth. There's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun. And, sometimes that can be better than the corporate
Right.
benefits. All right, Delina, I think she's going to be on
Yeah,
here.
there she is.
All right. Hi, Delina.
Hey,
Hey there.
you're on.
I know I also need a mute. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can hear you.
Sorry, it was putting both and I forgot to mute. This is so cool and I'm so excited you guys are doing this.
Thank
Um,
you.
I I've been thinking about and I think Natalie and I talked about it, and we both got a human development degree, and we met. I think you were one of the first business owners I met when I first moved here before I was even out of school. Um, and Martin, I know you and I have talked before, but when we talk about being in our balance or um, just being in this space of knowing what motivates us or what drives us, I'm curious about your thoughts of what do we do when, or how do we navigate, I think smoother or with less chaos feeling when we know that the way we want to do business is so at odds with the way that business is typically done.
Yeah,
I'm
great
doing the
question.
business growth and mentorship thing at WSU, and I think you guys did that as well with
Yeah.
Pacific Perks. And one of the questions they asked was, "What is success? How are you defining success?" And I sort of thought that they would just have like a "Here's what we think success is for these students in this program." And so I was thrown by the question. I think Martin you probably asked me, and I haven't been able to answer it that well either. And I asked, I just kept asking myself, like, what does this actually mean? And what I came back to was it's not measured in profit. I mean, I know that profit is
Mhm.
an indicator, but it's
Mhm.
not my goal. And
Mhm.
no matter how hard I try, I can't make it my goal,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so, so whether it's freedom
Mhm.
or it's impact or whatever
Mhm.
those things are, um, I don't know. I don't know how we as entrepreneurs who are wired in this way,
Mhm.
um, I don't know what we do with that. And so I wanted to see what your thoughts
Yeah, so this is great. And then there's this women too, and how we perceive things as well, and how we've been conditioned by society. And it's really taking a look at getting curious, which Delina, you told me a lot about curiosity. Getting curious and really figuring out what those things are for you and what are your top values, and making sure you're instilling them no matter what the outside world is. You just keep doing what you know is right in your heart and you will be fine. And you just have to not worry about the outside world. And ways to do this, and this kind of sounds cliche, but journaling and gratitude journal. So I used to journal and just blah all over the paper. um, what you want to do is, talk about things that are going well, and talk about things you did that were great, using your characteristics and how you combated different things during the day that challenged you. And really, every day, it's reprogramming your brain and reminding your brain that you are on the right track. These are my values. This is how they showed up in my day. This is how I honored them in my day. And you keep practicing it. And you'll have that little asshole in your head for probably a good 3 to 6 months, but
Forever.
forever, but you want him to quiet down,
Just
and
I
hopefully
hate
they
that
will.
that's the answer, or an answer. Like I have to, I hate, like, because I work in, trauma informed practices within
Yeah.
workplaces. I know about rewiring the
Yeah. Yeah.
neurobiology.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah. You're
that's
like,
not the
no.
answer I wanted. I'd like a different one. Martin, how about you?
but that's the thing, like you see what Natalie said about taking note of the things you did well, right? Like that is just a fact finding mission. It's collecting
Mhm.
evidence
Evidence. It's evidence. Hmm.
that is distinct from the evidence you
Hmm.
collect naturally.
Hmm.
The evidence you
Yes.
collect naturally is okay, what's risky? What is
Hmm.
something that would put me in danger, right? Like your
Hmm.
brain is hardwired to look
Hmm.
for
Yeah.
little
Hmm.
pitfalls here and there. And what you do by doing that practice is just basically collecting evidence to the contrary. Okay, yeah, that was a risk. It
Hmm.
was a number 3 risk. And I
Hmm.
did action number 4, and that basically was sufficient to
Hmm.
overcome that risk. So, evidence.
And literally just repeating that with your brain
The same
and
way we do all the
convincing
other
your
things,
brain.
right? Like
Yeah.
whenever we are healing our internal wounds as humans, or
Yeah.
working in with our professional development, we're learning new habits. We're learning, those things. I
Yeah.
don't think it's occurred to me that,
And you want to remember too
yeah.
that that there's no single way of doing of doing entrepreneurship.
Hmm.
There's not a single way,
Hmm.
right? There's a reason. There's entire
Hmm.
industries call themselves disruptors
Yeah.
because
Be a disruptor.
embrace the disruption, right? That is the part of it.
Hmm.
If you're the one doing things differently, embrace the disruption,
Hmm.
collect evidence on when things go right,
Hmm.
and then adapt.
Oh, that's a whole podcast.
It
And
is.
I have so many examples of that.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today,
Yeah.
Delina.
Yeah.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
We went over our time.
We did.
Oh
Yay.
my gosh. We were
Thanks,
worried we weren't
Delina.
going to have enough to talk about. Thank you, Delina. Awesome. Awesome. So we are kind of at the hour, past the hour. So want to close the show.
Say hi to
Thank you,
Ben.
Ben, for joining us. Ben said, I was on his podcast, and he called me later and he said, have you ever thought about having your own podcast? And I said, yeah, I have a secret dream of
I have a
having my own
secret
talk
dream.
show someday. So Ben, I
Steve,
did it. I
thank you
did
as
it.
well.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve's going to be talking to my HR coffee talk in a
Actually,
couple
yeah,
weeks.
thank you for everyone
Yeah.
who joined us live.
Yeah. Thank you guys. We really, really appreciate it. And so you can watch us next in 2 Fridays. So May 5th, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're going to have a guest,
Can we
Megan.
tease the guest, Nat?
Yeah, Megan Conter. She is the founder of the Dames Group, a wonderful women entrepreneur or director level group from people across the nation and across the globe. And how she got into this. She started it during 2020. It's just been an amazing journey, and I can't wait to have her. So she's amazing. So anyway. we will see you next time.
Thank you so much, guys. See you
Yeah,
next
thank
time.
you.